Welcome back to part 2. This is the installation and fitment guide. I'm going to go through everything I did to get this lined up the best I could, and I think I have it really close. A couple minor issues, but nothing crazy, nothing that is going to bother me at all, and nobody else is even going to notice in person. So I'm going to cover pretty much everything I did to fit. I'll kind of do a step-by-step of how I installed this. I'll kind of show you what I learned. And at the end, I'll tell you what I would do different if I were to install this today. Because now that I learned everything, I would approach it completely different on my install. So going into it, I was pretty amazed that there was not a single video anywhere on YouTube on how to install and align a hood on these cars. Absolutely nothing. Now there was a really old video. The guy says he was a VFN installer from about 15 years ago putting a Camaro hood on. And a lot of the steps he did, it did help me out. Now, there were some other things that I had to go beyond that. So I went on LS1 Tech and I probably read every single post that was a help me post when someone tried doing a hood. Didn't matter if it was VFN, the WSQ, True Fiber, a Super Hawk hood. You always see these help me posts where they just look completely off. So I'm going to cover a lot of that and do as much detail as I can. Now, if you're a body shop guy, and if you see anything that you would do different, please put it in the comments below. I know electronics, I know how to work on motors. This is really my first hood alignment. I did the best I could, used common sense, and I used all the knowledge I can find on LS1 Tech. When you first bolt your hood down, if it looks like it's way off, do not panic. When I first bolted this one down, I thought there's no possible way this hood is gonna fit. Let me show you a picture really quickly. As when I first bolted it down and it was actually latched in front, both hinges were all the way down, what this front corner looked like. All right, well, let's move on to the actual video. Now, I didn't film everything you're gonna see in order. Some stuff I had to go back and film later because I forgot it. And I also had a lot of troubleshooting in the middle that just didn't go anywhere because I was on the wrong path. What makes this hood so difficult is the standard hood, you're only going to have to line up front to back, side to side. With this, you have to get it down in this crevice here and then getting the nose to clear. This is the Iroc Motorsports version. You'll hear me reference the WSQ a lot because they have pretty much the same nostrils on the front. So same methods apply to both. Regular hood, you want to do a lot of that. And you'll see as I go through my video, this driver's corner, how bad it started. But I mean, it's perfect right now. So let's do it. Showing you the main tool I use for all my adjustments. So I used a Dremel with this metal grinding bit. I will put a link to the Amazon auction. You get a bunch of different shapes. This thing was amazing. This allowed me to basically bore out all the hood hinges. I also used it to trim, around the edges here to make this fit. Now, when you do trim, do not trim this edge here because if you go back to the WS-XXX hood, it is the only edge you will see. You don't want to mess that up, but you can absolutely bore this out a little bit because when you go back to a stock hood, that's covered up anyway. Just be very careful, hold it up and down. You don't want it to walk across and then put a big old gouge in there. And I try to because this is kind of on an angle, so I try to go in at an angle to actually change the edge. Now I touched up with touch-up paint. I need this probably stand a little smoother. Just really rough fit, and that tool worked amazing. All right, so as I mentioned in the first video, the very first mistake I made is I tried doing this install with the headlight covers on. From what I've read, at least from the other guys' posts, and it makes sense, these headlight covers are highly adjustable. You can move them forward, back, in, out. You can curve them. If I'm trying to install right now with these covers on, then I can only go so far forward based off the stock hood. Well, this hood is designed to sit a little farther forward, so I have to move those headlight covers forward. So I'm going to show you how to remove the headlight covers right now. Okay, first step is take headlight covers off. So there's 2 screws here you have to remove, and then you have to flip the light up and then take the 2 off when you take the black cover off. So I kind of like to leave those on and do those last. So first thing I'm going to do is put the headlights up and then turn it back to the middle position so that the bulbs are off, but it stays up. All right, to take off this black cover here, there is a screw in here, there's one in the middle, and there is one on the side. Now be very careful that you don't drop these screws because it's really easy to do and you'll never find them again. All right, so basically this cover off. 1 screw on the front, 1 screw on the outside, and then the 2 in the back, and then it'll lift right off. I have all 3 screws loose. You can see I got quite a bit of movement on these headlight covers. I can move it forward probably about 1/2 inch at least. More than enough than what I need. There we go. And then if I have to raise a corner, you know, I can do that. And then finally, to set the height again, you turn these. So to start off, you have to remove your factory hood. Now, of course, this is not the factory, this is my aftermarket, but it's the same process. Now, it's good to have minimum 2 people, 3 people is even better. So you're gonna have to, of course, salvage your hood latch and your hood catch, safety catch, remove that. You're gonna have to, you can unbolt the brackets here if you want, and then leave it attached to the hood strut. Take those off both sides. Of course, when both sides are off, the hood's gonna come down. That's where the third person comes in to help hold it up. And remove your hood is actually really easy. All you do is these 2 vertical bolts right here. You take them out. Now the hood's not gonna fall instantly because you do have this little metal tab right there. This is sort of like an alignment tab, and it's nice that the hood kind of rests on that when you remove those bolts, so it's not gonna fall and hit. As long as you're, you know, keeping it down. Once you have both sides done, the hood lifts right off. To remove the hood struts, to get them out of the way, really, really simple. So basically on the end here, there is a little plastic clip with a little opening. You basically get a screwdriver and then you pry it outwards. You don't have to remove this little metal tab. You just have to pry it outward just enough, give it a little tap, and it'll just pop right off. Very, very simple. You're gonna want those out of the way when you're aligning your hood. Those are one of the last things you'll be putting back on. Next thing you wanna remove are your little hood stoppers. So these just untwist by hand. Now you're probably gonna wanna order spares, or at least they're really easy to find on eBay. You get a set of 2 for $15. Because these are so old and with the heat under the hood, you can see they start to crumble and crack. I lost 3 out of 4 of mine. So you're gonna have one in each corner of the hood. And then there's actually, I put these back in, these are brand new ones in the front too. I haven't put these back on yet. Okay, so now I'm gonna show the VFN video real quick, the couple clips. What they do on the hood latch, and again, hood latch you're gonna put on last. There's an alignment tab like the Hinge that they actually bend straight. I didn't do that and I didn't have to, but they also bend the alignment tab on these hinges. So that gives you a little more front to back movement. What I actually did before I saw their video is I used my little Dremel bit and I just ground out this hole a little bigger to give me a little more room to go forward and backwards. And they also show how they're gonna slot the actual hinges so you can move forward and backward more, and they're going to drill out the hole here. These are 5/16 bolts. They use a 3/8 bit, so that gives you a little more up and down and forward and back movement. Now you can see how much I had to move mine forward. This used to be, these 2 metal brackets were in alignment, so you can see the edge all the way around. That's how much I had to drop this side and go forward. Hood on, simple again. If you have 2 or 3 people, basically what you're going to do, if you have those little alignment tabs, you're going to rest them on the alignment tabs. It's nice to have a third person to hold the front up, and you're going to basically just hand tighten these bolts in. You don't want to go crazy snug, and then you're going to basically just hand tighten them in and be very careful. Don't use an impact. I read one post where a guy, he cross-threaded one of those, and then of course when you cross-thread you can't get it out, and when he was trying to remove the back one, it broke off the entire corner of his VFN hood. Again, this is not VFN, but that can happen to any fiberglass. Very, very careful. You should be able to thread those in by hand and not use any tool at all. And once it's basically, you want it snug, but you want to be able to shift the hood back and forth and angle it. Very carefully lower it, and have your 2 friends, if you have them of course with you, check your corners. Make sure that the hood is not going to hit your fender and take your paint off. If you want, you can put a little painter's tape on here to try to protect it. But you got to make sure your left to right and your front to back is good. When I first started, it was way too far back. And on the passenger side, it was actually hitting this pretty badly. So again, it's nice to have 2 watchers, 1 in each corner, and a person in the front lowering the hood just to get your base alignment. And when you have it close, you can very carefully open the hood and then snug it back down. Here's where I am right now. See, I got the gap back here perfect. I had to drop this quite a bit on the hinge. Now the problem with this side, the hood's a little thicker. So it's hitting, there's a little stopper on the hinge itself, so the hinge can't flip backwards. It's actually pushing on the hood, so I need to take the hood off and sand the hood down a little bit right there. But I have both sides equal now, so you can tell it's sloped upwards on an angle, and it shows throughout the whole thing. So I don't think it's warped, because you can even see coming in here, it needs to drop about a good 1/4 of an inch. The problem is it's hitting, actually it's not hitting those, I have it perfectly gapped where it's not touching. But even if I pull the hood forward just a little bit, I can probably close this gap up a little bit more. I shaved a little bit of this, I'll smooth that out. Both sides, smooth that out too. But what I did is I actually shimmed this up to get a slope, but it really doesn't matter because the whole hood has to come down anyway. So the question is there any way to adjust this nose farther in or downward, or do I need to like basically just cut it out so that way this lip drops inside the nose? The front gaps to me are pretty good. You can't go much farther forward because when the hood does go up and down, you know, the tip pivots out. You need to have enough clearance. So I need to shave just a hair here because it's catching when the hood goes up and down. Need to shave, I'll shave the hood just a little bit there on both sides. And this looks like a larger gap here. It's because this is being pushed down by this tip here. So I need to shave this to clear so that way I have kind of clearance like that. And once that happens, then this will pop back up because I could see right when I pop the latch, it just jumps up. But the heights are good. So I'll show when I shimmed the corners, I got these edges pretty good. So it's, you know, it's a nice smooth line. This is pretty darn good. If I can get this hood to drop just a hair more, I think it'll be almost perfect. I noticed this side of the hood's a little higher, so I can actually put an additional washer here that'll raise this up a little bit more. Again, my biggest problem is then just this corner. I think this is the slight warpage corner. Again, if I can get this to drop like 1/8 of an inch, I think it'll be good. And then for the headlight covers, I'll be able to pop these on. And then, as you can see, you know, there's a lot of adjustment. Make them a little snugger than this, line them up, and then it'll probably sit right about there and gives me a nice gap all the way around. So like I said, it's getting close.